Hello, everybody, and good morning. Welcome back to the Friday edition of Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, Disembodied Hands, Quindy, Justin, John, and the true star of the show, Kickers! Yay! Good girl! She knows. She knows this is her job now. She knows this is her job. You get your ears up. Yep, get your ears up. There you go. So everybody can see that you actually have ears. Good girl. Yeah, good girl. Good kisses. I love you. Yes. Mwah. Good girl. Good girl. Who loves her mama? You do. Yes. You're a daddy's girl, I know, but you pretend to love your mama at the start of the show. Yes. All right, Keekers. You don't need to eat the miniatures, okay? Good girl. Yay. All right. You've got your mat and you've got your bully stick. Good girl. Good girl, Kiki. Good girl. See you in a little while. She's getting into the groove of it now. She's got her bully stick and she's actually lying on her new bed. She's given up trying to eat it. She has realized that although she can pull it's a sheepskin, it's a double sheepskin. She's realized that though she can pull clumps off of it, it's not as satisfying as gutting a bed and pulling all the stuffing out. So I actually caught her lying on it this morning, happily chewing her bully stick. So I think the bed is a success. 1 second. Been a lot of rain recently. My nose is all stuffed up. Ugh. Thought our rain was over. I thought I was going to get my happy weather. But I'm sitting here. We have a little break, and there's the sun on the neighbor's trees across my back fence. And then there's just this heavy rain cloud behind it. Just not going to win. Yeah, allergy fill time. There you go, Quindy. There you go. Yes. So let me pop over to here. But yeah. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, green users. Good morning in Arizona. I hope you have warmer weather than I do. There are times like this that I wish I was in Arizona. I'm dang this Bay Area. And I had my tamales early, so we're not having tamales for Cinco de Mayo, but we are having chicken fajitas. So we had 3 days of Mexican food this week. So we're celebrating Cinco de Mayo across several days, but I have my book signing, my book reading tonight. Hopefully Cory Doctorow will sign my book too, and we can chat about his book, his depressing book. But yeah. Oh no. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's water here right now in SoCal, or not SoCal, NorCal, the south part of NorCal. So is that so NorCal? We're so NorCal, dude. Anyway, I'm a little bit today because Friday. Yay. So I was looking at my book writing schedule this morning. I was kind of mapping it out because I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to work on for Camp Nano, if I'm going to work on anything for Camp Nano, because I might still have to be editing this book. And then I was thinking about what I would work on for NaNoWriMo this year. So I was trying to figure out, essentially I was trying to figure out what my cycle might look like, but it's still so up in the air. Because I can't really judge from East of the Sun and West of the Moon because they were already written. I just needed to rewrite them, which is, it might be actually slower than raw writing, or it might be faster. I have no idea. So, oh yeah, there's a lake, an extinct lake that was reborn in California, and now it's threatening to flood the town that was built on the floodplain because it had been decades since there had been a lake there. And some people want to keep the lake, and some people don't. But most people are just God damn it, put in levees or something so that our town isn't flooded. But yeah, because all the snow is running off of the mountains, and it's the most snow that we've gotten up in those mountains for a while. So they're essentially it's filling the floodplain. There's a reason it's a floodplain. But yeah, I've read about stuff like that happening in really dry places like Australia, where lakes will be born, they'll last for a decade, and then they'll evaporate, and then they'll come back eventually decades further on and stuff like that. Oh, I'm sorry you're on fire, Shadow Raven. I mean, I hope you're not on fire, but your countryside, I mean. Fire is no fun. We'll have that this summer, most likely. Although we've had so much rain, it depends really on how dry it is this summer. But we're supposed to hit an El Nino, I think. So that's going to make it nice and hot and dry. But also probably smoky like my first summer here. Alrighty, what do we got? We got some dude. We got some dude and some cobblestones. Oh, that's right. I was going to get some green stuff. Let me go and get my green stuff, folks. I do not think I have it here. I have it in the freezer. 1 second. Kiki's like, oh, you're out. Can I come back? There we go. Oh, that's a bummer, Shadow Raven. That is that's a scary thing. Fires can be very scary. Hey, Daffodweir, 43 months. Crazy talk. Thank you for the resub. I always think it's crazy that you guys have been watching it this long. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at our little cobblestones and we're going to fill in some cobblestones that look like these. We're going to try to match them roughly for size and look and kind of like trail them into the dirt. So it makes it look like they've been crumbling. Like it's been cobblestones that were placed down a long time ago and they are crumbling and like soil has come to rest and little plants are growing between them and stuff like that. So we're looking for that kind of like the wilderness is trying to encroach on your cobblestones feel. Alrighty. Frozen stuff. So a little bit of blue, a little bit more of yellow, and it's still very frozen. So it's like, I do not want to be pinched off. It says, you should cut me instead. I need a mat. I do have a tiny cutting mat. If you have not ever looked for one of these, you need a tiny cutting mat. They make them. Tiny cutting mat. So when you need to cut things, you can have a tiny cutting mat. Oh, it's starting to thaw already, but that's okay. Still easier to cut through most of it and then pinch it off. There we go. We kind of assess our proportions there. Pretty okay. I can get a tiny bit more blue in there, I think. Dollar Tree sells the tiny cutting mat. Yeah, the tiny cutting mat is really useful for hobbying because it fits on anybody's surface, even if, you know, your surface is tiny. I keep it in my drawer down here underneath my desk. It's very useful for things like that when you just need to snip off of something. But yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how fast my writing speed actually is. And I guess I'm only going to find out when I start my brand new shiny project and see how long it actually takes me to write it. I do anticipate a lot less editing because I'm a better writer now. So a lot of the big mistakes I was making with my writing that were taking so much rewriting won't really be a factor heading into this new book. These new bookses. Precious. But yeah, so I don't know. Like I was trying to figure out if I really can get North of the Wind like done and out by April next year or if it's going to have to wait till May. I really have no idea. Yeah, the tiny little cutting mats are great and so inexpensive. I have a big one too, but never use it. Morning Inara. Yeah, so this is all like, it's kind of like when you're painting miniatures, like you think you know how fast you are, but then you like change something and you're just like, I have no idea how long it will now take me to finish a miniature. Like you learn layering and you're just like, oh. Or you learn wet blending and you're like, zoom. So we'll get this all mixed up and then we will do some cobbly things. And I've still got my sand here, so if I need a bit of extra sand, I can definitely grab it. Or I can use those handy texture stamps that Jolie and Bob in their niceness passed on to David, because one of these definitely, rough sandpaper can make that texture for you. It won't be as deep, but I could also put a layer of glue over my sand to make it more like this. So essentially, by using this stamp, I can get something that's very close to this. And if this seems a little more shallow, you know, using this on green stuff, I mean, I can put a coat of something over the top of the other sand. So well, hopefully you find it relaxing to slow down in Ara, and hopefully it's not frustrating. I know some people really, their goal is really, they like the completion of stuff, and so painting faster suits them better. But I always found that it was a lot more relaxing when I didn't have that pressure, if I could take my time. So there's all different folks with all different motivations, right? I need sculpting tools. I think I will use Bob and Jolie sculpting tools and tiny spoon, because I don't really need anything big to do these little cobbles. Although tiny spoon has like managed to wedge himself into this bag. There we go. Boop. There. Got all our things. I put this back in here, and I'm gonna grab this bag out because this is green stuff sits on it bag. So my email promotion for East of the Sun went pretty well yesterday. It got me back up into the below 40,000 in the Kindle store, and it got me in the top 100 in a couple of categories. And I was interested to see that apparently enough people have bought my book for Kindle to adjust its categories for me, and now they're exactly the categories that I think they should be, which is fairy tale and folklore adaptations ebooks and adaptations books for teen and young adult. So that was exactly the category I thought I should be in. When the book first launched, they had it in a couple of different things, like coming of age fantasy for children's, but they've adjusted it, so the algorithm is working. Yeah, I had to put colors on sculpts. Yep. Yeah, sometimes you have to do that bit of reorientation, right? Like, why did I start this again? So I'm going to put a blob of green down here. Actually, I'll flatten it out a bit, I think. Here, come here, green. I'm going to flatten you out just a little bit. Flat. And I'm going to peel it up. Ah. Boop. And this is the area that we kind of flattened down. I'm going to have to scrape a bunch of this green off because it's too much for this area. But I didn't check my dashboard yet, but the ranking went down significantly, so we're getting a few sales. The thing I can't see and won't see is Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited borrows and reads. Like, it'll show me reads once I check my dashboard, like page reads. But it may not. I didn't see anywhere, last time when I looked at my dashboard, I didn't see anywhere to tell me how many borrows. Like, I don't know if they tell you that. Because a borrow doesn't count for anything. Unless it counts as a sale, quote unquote. But, I think they only track page reads. So yeah. Otherwise, though, it's cool. It was nice to see my book go lower in the rankings, like lower being better. Or I guess high. I can call it higher, even though the number is lower. And really, I told David, if at the end of it all, I have if I have scored like 25 sales or downloads, and have gotten a couple of new reviews and have gotten a few new mailing list people, I will count this as a success. Because really the whole thing about this was just getting more people to know that I'm out there. So I wasn't looking necessarily to recoup my money. The money wasn't very much. Like, you know, it cost me $62 to send out those 2 email blasts. And they're still working because, I mean, I know that myself, when I use these email things, I sometimes don't check my BookBub emails until I'm looking for a new book. And then I'll check like the last 2 or 3 and probably download 2 or 3 books. And a lot of these books are going to be like, my book is always in Kindle Unlimited. So even if people miss the sale and see the flyer later, they're still going to be able to get the book. They're going to be able to read it for free if they're in Kindle Unlimited. They might miss my sale price, but the sale is going on for a whole week. It's just going to only stay at 99 cents, I think, on one more day. I think it's today. And then tomorrow it goes to $2.99. But yeah, it's really, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think you have to. Like, I'm reading a book by Orna Ross, who's one of the co-founders of the Alliance of Independent Authors. She puts out a lot of writer help books, essentially. Like, so you're new to self-publishing, because she's a pro at it. And everything is about mindset with her. She's just like, you've got to define success for yourself. Otherwise, you're never going to know if you reach it, and you're going to be unhappy. So before I even did this, I understood that because I was going with smaller platforms, and because I was new, and because I didn't have a second book for people to read, it wasn't like I was going to probably make enough money off of this promotion. But I was curious. What I was really curious to see is how many people actually download my book, right? And then I can judge whether it's worth it. So I'm just I made a couple of different little pockets here for cobblestones. So I'm going to put that extra green down there. I'm using water just to, and we're very fuzzy. We're so fuzzy. We need to not be fuzzy. There, we're not fuzzy anymore. Kiki's fuzzy, but it's kind of her MO. There we go. And I'm going to chop off the end there. Oh, good. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, the cover art is just good. My cover artist is so good. I love her. I can't wait to work on North of the Wind's cover art. North of the Wind gets to have a wolf on it. So I'm excited. But yeah, I mean, I think also all of the reading that I did about indie publishing and talking to a couple of different indie authors was really useful in like setting expectations for me as well. Like, I know that since I only have one book and I'm brand new, nobody's going to know who I am. Nobody's going to read it. I'm going to have to just slowly build. Like, I understood that this was the long game, and that it was going to take me, years, probably many, many books to build up enough momentum. And so I kind of have it in my head, like kind of a metric of, okay, how long do I think it's going to take for me to build an audience of X size, right? And then I'll see if my expectations are realistic as time goes on. Right. Like, people can download your book and never read it. It happens all the time. I do that. Like, I have a bunch of books that I downloaded ages ago for 99 cents or whatever, and I haven't read them. Like, I haven't, because my reading time is so very little that it takes me a while. And sometimes I'm just like, you know what? This is my kind of thing, but I'm not in the mood for it right now, so I'll read it later. So often I go through my unread stack in my Kindle when I'm going on a plane to see if there's anything that I really want to read while I'm traveling. But yeah, so I think it's best, no matter what your creative goals are and what you're doing, to define success for yourself. Like, it's the same thing if you decide that you want to do mini painting competitions, right? If you're going to, or you just decide, I don't know if I want to, but I'll enter ReaperCon this year and see how it goes. So to kind of say, okay, I'm setting out to, I definitely, want to get a lot of positive feedback when I show my mini to my friends at ReaperCon. And I want to score at least a bronze. I really want to score a silver, but if I don't score a silver and I come up just short, then I'll talk to the judges and see what I could have done to make this a silver, right? Things like that. Like, but yeah, a lot of people go into, especially writing, with a nebulous dream of, tons of sales and quit your real job, and it's not that. Right now, see, the thing is, I have extreme faith. I've always had like an unshakable faith in my writing. Like, I've always felt that I'm a solid writer, that I'm good, and that my books have something to offer. And so having that faith for me, then it's not about worrying if I'm good enough. It's only the I need to build an audience, and that's going to take a while. So my goal is different. My goal is still to improve as a writer, because obviously I still have things that I can work on. There's definitely things that I think I could improve in my writing a little bit, like pacing a little bit. I think, even though my editor said my pacing was good, I'm like, I feel like it could be a little bit good, better. So things like that, you know. But yeah, but most of my focus is I know that I can write, so now I need to find readers. And I have faith that if I slowly find readers, I will eventually get traction. Because I feel that my books are good. I feel that they're fun. And I feel that other people will appreciate that. So, all right, so we've got some patches of green stuff here. So yeah, so a lot of my successful sale is tied into that discovery notion, right? People who actually get my book, actually read it, leave a review, or join my mailing list. Like, that's what I want. Day before the Derby, huh? Yeah. Alrighty, so we'll probably want to, let's see here. Gotta look at my little cobblestones. They're really little irregular, kind of rounded off rectangles. So I'm going to kind of map out a line, but then I'm going to deviate from it, because a lot of these, like in some places, these are kind of a line. Like you can see the line there, but then they vary a lot. Like they'll get rounded and bigger and smaller. So if you want to do kind of organic cobblestones, you probably want to set up like one line, but then you want to deviate from it as you move across the space. And I need to keep an eye on the size of the cobblestones. And I'm just kind of mapping these out. I could also grab leaf. Leaf would be a good tool for this. Or hockey stick, whatever Julie calls it. Just to do little presses and get these little stones in here. So just kind of lined in, and then we need to make them deeper, because if we look at our cobblestones back here, we can see that they are. Now, if we let these set up, we're going to get a better result, because right now they're very gooey, because they're very fresh. And so probably it's better to go over here and just keep kind of blocking them in, and then give them a little bit of setup time before I go in and really start to punch them. Because if I start to punch in these now, they're going to get all poofy and rounded looking. Whereas right now, before I punch them in, they're quite flat, and I like that a little better. They are a little poofy over here though, so maybe I should be punching them. But if I wait a little bit for this setup, I'll be able to press the corners and make the green pop up just a little bit. So I don't think I'm losing an opportunity. I used to watch the Kentucky Derby as a kid, like compulsively, because I used to read, Walter Farley, was it, who wrote the Black Stallion books? I was a compulsive reader of the Black Stallion books. And so I loved horse racing, and I would always watch it. And I would get downright sulky when we had to do stupid things like go to church instead of me watching the Kentucky Derby. So little bits of cobblestones going in. And I'll go a little bit without a line over here. I'm going to go a little more freeform. I'm going to make a couple more rounded shapes too. and a little bit more irregular shapes. Just with little touches of the leaf tool, just kind of like mapping those in, and then I can make them a little bit more. Yeah, sometimes you really want an electrician for that. David almost did it himself the first time we needed a wall socket dealt with, and then he decided to get an electrician instead, even though it would be more money. And instead he just like took notes when the electrician was here so he could do it again in the future. But I'm like, I don't know if I want you messing around with the power. So I totally get it, Twisted Oma. I'd be a little peeved as well. Hopefully he apologized profusely after he did it. So now I'm kind of poking up the edges of some of these and making them a little more round on this side. And I can also do that with these guys over here. I might want to change tool to this guy for a little finer control, and that pointy end can be useful. Although it is a little bit more blunt, and I feel like leaf really gives me a nicer edge. So maybe actually it's down to Tiny Spoon. Tiny Spoon does have an edge. There's little presses, kind of setting that up and getting them pressed in a little bit more. And then I probably will do, yeah, I know, right, Shadow Raven? Going to polish these down a little bit. There. Now, if I look at these, I've got bigger gaps between them, so I am going to start pressing to bring bigger gaps between my little stones. So like bigger gaps. I'm probably going to drift some of this gravel over the edges, or I'll put green stuff down and texture it like the gravel twist dome. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, they'll be blended in a bit. Ideally. You could do it either way. The sand is harder to control, but the green stuff won't necessarily give you exactly the texture. And you also have to wait, like you'd have to wait for this to completely set before you drifted that sand across it like I drifted it there. Although drifting it across would equalize this area and probably work pretty well. I'm going to leave these two little divots here, I think. I might bring out the green there after I do these. Uh-oh, a little piece of sand there, it wants to creep. If you don't want little bits of sand to continually be coming off your base after you do this sort of thing, apply a layer of paint or white glue, thinned white glue over it, and it'll fix it in place. So those are much more, you can see the indents are much more strong on these now. But yeah, I think I defined my long-term writing goals too, and I think I had that I wanted my mailing list to be 100 people by the end of next year. That was my goal. So we'll see if I can hit that. I know what my metrics were before this promotion, so I'll be able to see if I've gained any people. There are other email lists I want to try out too. So, but I'll probably wait on those until West of the Moon comes out. Because it makes more sense to do the promo on the first book to promote the second book. Probably it's your backdrop. I don't use the visualizer software. I just make sure that I've got this medium gray behind my figure. If I put too much white in the frame, things will go darker. See? Dark, dark. And if you're having a problem with white overblowing, you might want to just switch to a white paper behind your figure, or a pale gray. But I mean, almost always it's either if I put black in, everything will get lighter, or I'll put white in, everything will get darker. And the gray is usually good enough for me, but no, I don't use their software at all. Haven't found it necessary. But you got to watch your backdrop color. Backdrop color is so important for these cameras. Once you figure out how to manipulate it, it's a little easier. But yeah, if your whites are blowing out, I would use a lighter background. And it's going to vary by the figure. So if the figure is very, very light colored, you might need more of a light backdrop. But yeah, for most figures, I find that the medium gray works great. But if a figure is extremely dark or extremely light, especially at the start, if you've got a lot of white primer or something, that's the camera is having trouble figuring out. Well, it better help now, Twisted Oma, because now you can point to him trying it and it failing. Oh well, it is what it is. Hopefully you fix it soon. So just getting these guys kind of to get together a little bit. Boop. So that's cool. That actually does look like cobblestones that I can build up the sand and drift it onto them a little bit, and get that effect that I'm looking for. So that's cool. I'm happy about that. I think I will do. I'm going to leave this here for plants, but I'm going to take this one and bring the cobblestones out from the base here a little bit to make it look more irregular, to disguise that his base is sitting there. So we're trying to disguise, whenever you do this with an inset base where you don't cut the base off, you want to disguise the base and make it blend into his surroundings. And there are various ways to do that, because you can put basing material over the top of it, or you can sculpt over the top of it, as we've done many times before. But here I'm actually going to utilize its texture, and I'm just going to add parts coming off of it so that it disguises the fact that it was a plastic base to begin with. So those are all the ways that you can kind of disguise, not have to cut the figure off the base. Because sometimes cutting the figure off the base can be dicey and difficult to do without harming the figure. Especially if you come up with a basing idea a little later in the process and you're like, oh, I already painted it. Now I'm afraid to hurt the paint job cutting it off the base, which is valid. All right, so I'm just going to flatten this down, curve it a little bit, curve it downward a little bit. And I'll try to feed the cobblestones off the end. Yeah, you'll get power back just in time to lose it again, Twisted Oma. I hope not. I do miss my Texas thunderstorms. Just making some cobbles here, and then I'll just again kind of punching them in, and then I'll spread them out a bit, and that will make the base just look a little bit. And then we're, of course, this white part back here, we are going to bring in more cobbles. So overall, it should help us disguise the fact that we used his integral base. Get a little bit more water on my tool. Whenever you start to feel it stick, then it's good to make sure you have adequate water. I'm going to flatten down this stone a bit. Flatten down that one. So yeah, we'll probably do another layer of sand after this. That may take us a little while to do the space. That's all right. So there's our little puddles of cobbles. I may, when I do the back of this, I may actually take it around and join it up just a little bit, but leave this gravel here just to mess it up. Yes, life is an adventure. Alrighty, so I've got a big fat worm of green here that I'm going to be putting around the backside of this guy. I've got to watch out. At this point, I probably want to grab a block, so I'll take my bust off of this one and put him onto it instead. That way I can hold the model without handling the base where I'm putting all this fresh putty on. 1 second while I get the blue tack all figured out here. Okay, there we go. Get my blue tack all glue-balled, all nice and stretched out here so it sticks really well. Just going to use this big wooden block that I've got. It's I think it's 1.5 inches. I have 1.5 inches and 2 inch and 1 inch wooden blocks. They're very inexpensive. They're good for very simple bust plinths. If you paint them black, a lot of people use them that way. They also make great mini painting stands. So, especially with plastic models, they're heavier than the plastic. So. Man, this This blue tack is seriously breaking down. It's getting old. It almost wants to particulate. I feel like I almost want to add more mounting putty to it because it's really goopy. It's a bit stringy, but it is very sticky, so I'm going to utilize it for now. Plop it onto the top of this. Boop, bloop, 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 bloop. It's very sticky, but that will make him stick well. We'll press him down just a little bit, and that'll hold him on. David likes his iPad for note taking. Yeah, for web browsing, you've got, I think, a more limited. Like if you're doing an electronic notebook, there are all sorts of things available out there. But if you want web browsing, I think it's different. I think you might be stuck between the Apple and the Android, but I'm not certain on that. I was looking at electronic notepads because I was interested in maybe getting one because it would make it easier to organize my novel notes, because I do a lot of mind mapping for my plotting and character stuff, and it would be cool to be able to just drop those into folders and be able to search for them and stuff instead of having it all hard copy. And I can't really do it on my computer because I'm drawing, so David uses his for watching videos, especially on planes, and doing, random web stuff. And also he has Procreate, so he uses it for like sketching in color schemes for miniatures when he's not sure. All right, now I need a big spoon. Big spoon, where are you? There you are. So I'm bringing this in. This is where I discover I don't have enough green stuff, even though I thought I was going to have too much green stuff. But maybe not. Yeah, I do need more. I need more on the edges. But I'll do this center section first. And I do want it to slope a little bit. So I will pull the green out a little bit and create a slope. When I'm working with big, thick pieces of green like this, I like this big, heavy spoon. There. But you can make it slope down to the base then, so it looks nice. Yeah, I think David got the iPad one because he wanted it to synergize with his phone, which is an iPhone, so makes sense that way. But yeah, the Android is probably a much more economical choice. Okay, let's get our leaf again, and we'll cut some cobblestones in here. Makes sense. I don't know that it makes much difference these days which one you go, oh, hey, vertical. I'm seeing a vertical pattern of cobblestones here, so I think I'm going to go with it. So I'm just using my leaf tool to kind of cut. When I look at it this way, I can see the rows. Can you see the rows? Didn't see those rows because I was looking for a horizontal pattern. So now I do see the rows, so I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with what Bobby sculpted. And there's a little bit of variation. He's pushing some stones slightly left, some slightly right. But I'm essentially going to do a bunch of lines that'll help me map out. And I'll curve some a little bit, I think, so that it's not just straight on. But now I've got those cuts there, so I can do a grid now that's irregular with bigger and smaller cobblestones. I'm going to vary it up a little bit. So you can see how I'm just cutting those shapes in. want some bigger, I think I want some slightly bigger stones in here, like a big rock right here. And then I'll go back to little stuff over here. A little bit of angles. And I'll actually mess it up a little bit. Don't want it to get too regular. So if I've got a broader one, I can cut it in half the other way and mess up the quote-unquote pattern, making it harder for the eye to see. All right, so we've got our cuts in there. So now we'll switch to tiny spoon and we'll start to widen everything out and put in those creases between. Yeah, I'm looking for, so I'm really looking for an electronic notebook. I just feel like, I don't know, but I question myself too, because they're expensive. And it's like, well, will you really use it? Or do you just really like drawing on your Bristol board with your markers, right? Because I won't be able to do color. I would just have to use different shades of gray to delineate different depths of idea. And right now, I'm working on so few projects that it isn't hard to just keep my mind maps to hand. But as I write more, it will get, you know, I'm going to start to build up quite a stock of paper, I suspect. 3D modeling and 2D drawing, yeah. So mostly I'm just using tiny spoon to just punch a little bit deeper into these crevices and then push out the stones a bit or crimp them in so that they get farther from each other. And you can get that more realistic cobble pattern. The other thing I need to do is take this and make a little bit of texture while my green is still fresh. Makes just a little bit of texture onto the cobbles. There, see the texture? So that makes them look like less plasticky and more real. Thanks to Julie and Bob for the texture stamp. So we'll continue etching these and then we'll do the texturing on them as well. So this is fun and relaxing. Like when you first look at it, you're like, oh my God, all those little cobbles. But when you just make it a grid and then your job is just to go in and kind of break them up, refine them, make them a little different. And blend them in. It's kind of, you get in the zone. It's kind of relaxing. Because you have time to work with the putty. So I think my brain is at war with itself. I realized this recently. Part of my brain really, really, really loves to go traipsing off after new things. I bet you all can totally identify with that in miniatures and in writing, by the way. Part of my brain wants to go traipsing off and start a new thing. But a big part of my brain works so much better and is so much happier if it just focuses on one thing at a time. So it's like my traitorous little shiny thing brain is like, oh, you can start a new book and, you know, July, you can do that. It'll be okay. You don't need to just keep working on West of the Moon. and my focus brain is like, no, we need to focus until West of the Moon is done, and then I'll let you work on something new and shiny. And I wonder how long it's been that my brain has been at war with itself this way without me noticing, you know? Have you been in this situation? Shiny brain versus focus brain? Because I do have a focus brain, and I do get things done more efficiently when I focus on one thing, but I also have a shiny brain that gets bored, and it's like, I don't want to work on the new one. You know, it whines a lot. Like shiny brains do. And I just wonder which one is right. Like, is focus brain being too inflexible? Or is shiny brain being too whiny? I can't decide. I can't decide. It could be either. It could be either. But with my writing, it's dangerous because I really do want to get these books out. You know, it is dangerous because I want to get as many books out a year as I can. Eventually, that's the goal, right? My goal would probably be to put out 3 books a year. Like, I feel like that's attainable even for me and I tend to take a while to think things over and to work on a book and to make it better, right? So, and that's pretty fast even for a person who tends to take their time. 3 books a year is pretty fast. I mean, Nora Roberts does 4, and she's a speed demon. She used to do more, but in an interview I read with her, she pointed out that a lot of that material were books that she had previously mostly written that she just had to like rework because they were older books that she just had to rewrite and make better. So when she was putting out like crazy amounts of books a year, it was mostly stuff that she'd already had drafted that she just had to turn around instead of raw writing. And now that she's doing raw writing, 4 books a year is like her sustainable number. Night, because what I'm looking for, and this is my brain also, I'm looking for optimal, right? I'm looking for the best way. So the way that my brain functions best, because that's going to give me a bigger return, right? If I focus on my strengths, it's going to focus, I'm going to get more back than if I try to like get all scattered. So I really want to know, like, is it going to hurt my productivity to go racing off after the shiny thing every once in a while? Because the thing is that I kind of tried this with West of the Moon and East of the Sun. When I was working on editing one of the editing passes for East of the Sun, I think it was after I got my first editor's notes back, I wondered, oh, can I just also be working on the rewriting I need to do on West of the Moon? And essentially what it happens is it tanked my productivity. Because my brain really, really does better when it can focus on one thing. And even though they were 2 halves of the same story, I didn't start to really see progress until I focused in just on East of the Sun. So I'm kind of looking at my shiny brain kind of dubiously in here. Because what I don't want to do is make people wait longer for books. Because I've decided to go like traipsing off after the shiny thing. And that tanks my productivity on the existing working project. So for me, for some people, it wouldn't be one or the other, right? Some people will be able to do, probably people that are more adaptable than I am. I'm not very adaptable. So like learning like your brain and what your brain's like best outcome is, like, could I do it? Sure, but I think what I would really be doing, this is like the old multitasking thing, right? Where you feel like you're getting more done when you're multitasking, but really you're just like taking longer at multiple tasks. So I feel like it's like that, where I would feel like I was getting more done, but in reality it would slow me down on both projects. Especially with writing, where you have to get into the world, right? You have to get into the world, you have to get in your characters' heads. You have to like be there so that you can like make logical like gut calls about how a character would react or how magic would work in this situation, right? So if I split myself between the kind of cozy adventure fantasy I want to write and the Bear Kings books, I feel like I'm just going to end up making less progress on both. Well, that's exactly it. But that's exactly what I want. See, that's the question, right, Agent Marvel? Because in the past, I have taken a break and written that's when I write my urban fantasies, is when I'm like, I need a fast, fun project, and this project has been sitting in my brain, poking me for a while, and so I'm just going to sit down and write it. So that's where the question, because usually my question would be, having tried this with East of the Sun and West of the Moon, usually it would be like, well, I already tried this and it didn't work. But you have a point, because I do like to take a break and write something just really lightweight and fun. And I have had success with that in the past, as far as writing the fun thing very quickly. Still needs editing, but you know. So yeah, so that's kind of my question as I'm looking at this summer and fall. I use NaNoWriMo events to kind of like plan out my year a bit, because I like the extra motivation. And so for me, there are 2 books I can write this year. One in July or summer-ish, and one in the fall for Nano in November. October, November is usually what I would do. And so I'm trying to figure out, because I'm like looking at it and I'm like, if I want North of the Wind to be done by next spring, I probably need to make North of the Wind my July project. But originally, my summer, I usually take it very easy in summer. Like, there are lots of other things going on that I want to do. And so I kind of was a seasonal writer for a long time. I do a ton of writing in fall, winter, and early spring. And then I kind of like let my foot off the gas a bit for a while to regenerate. But I'm questioning that too. I'm like, well, do I really need to do that? Or is it optimal? I don't know. All this is a grand experiment, right? Yeah. Yeah, he takes a break to do something like, yep. Yeah. Right. Editing book 2 isn't much different than working on book 1, yeah. Editing book 2 was enough to take me out of, like, I just depend on my focus so much. And my focus is my brain is the kind of brain that wants to put its blinders on and just go on one thing. And if I try to, even if I try to break up my day too much, I'll be really unhappy and dissatisfied at the end of it. And I won't feel like I got anything significant done. So yeah, I'm going to be doing some brain hacks on myself this year, I think, because I really want to know. I want to know, well, did I really need to take the summer off? Or can I write during the summer as long as I write something, or can I only write during the summer if I do something really lightweight and fun? So my cozy fantasy idea that I want to write is something I've wanted to do for a long time. If you guys are familiar with Pathfinder, you'll know about, probably know about the Kingmaker Pathfinder adventure path, where essentially the characters, it's kind of a classic. It's like D&D Companion Set kind of did this too, where your characters start out as noobs and then they actually inherit a fort or something, and it grows into a town and then into a city, and then they end up ruling the city, right? They end up being players. So I want to do something like that, but as a cozy fantasy with a little girl, an orphan girl from a city who inherits a ruined town from her eccentric aunt who has passed away. And it's haunted by the ghost of a giant lynx. So this ghostly blue lynx is appears every night, and essentially it's the only reason monsters haven't moved into the town. And then she doesn't know, she never really knew her aunt, and she doesn't understand, who was this woman and why did she leave me this thing? And then there's a whole bunch of, intrigue from the city that she's in, and why did this town get ruined anyway? And And then magic in the city that she's in is very tightly controlled, and only illusion magic. Illusion magic is said to be the only kind of magic. Or at least it's definitely like the only acceptable kind of magic. Because there is another kind, but it was outlawed because it essentially a bunch of evil sorcerers used it to create monsters and tried to take over and destroy all the cities in the area. Stuff like that. So anyway, this is so that's why cozy. It doesn't sound very cozy, does it? But it is, because it's like making your own like fantasy town. It's like creating your own environment. So it's like I get to create a fantasy town through these books from the ground up. Yeah, Kingmaker is cool. Like, I've always loved this idea, and it's probably the DM in me that just loves to create settings. As you all know, if you were, during the pandemic, we created a setting for a game and ran a little bit of it. But, so this lets my character, like, kind of grow as herself and figure out the mysteries around all of this stuff, and about her family, and about, magic, and about this town, as the town slowly grows from like a ruin with just a bunch of like other orphan kids in it, who are also, able to like figure out like their new roles, and then grow it into a town and then a city in its own right. And there will be some danger. I can't write fantasy with no risk, but I can definitely write like cozy. I mean, if you look at some of the stuff that's defined as cozy, there is danger. It's just not, there's no overt gore. There's no overt, no really bad language or torture or anything like that, right? And that's the kind of thing I like. I like there to be risk, and I like there to be danger, but I like there to also be a sense of like a place you love and a characters you love and a world you love and that kind of thing, right? Like Redwall. Redwall is technically cozy. They don't go very graphic, Yeah, and the scope, you start out, there will be a little bit of a wider threat as the series goes. It's a 5-book series, the way that I've got it planned, kind of mind mapped out. And I'm calling it Queenmaker. Its working title is Queenmaker. So yeah, so that's like cozy fantasy that's been totally like taking over my head for like 6 months now. And usually when the characters are this strong and the world is this strong, I eventually give in and write it. But it would be, for me to commit to a 5-book series, it's like I have to write it all beforehand and then publish the books like one a month. Because I wouldn't want to do another long, protracted series. And this would be a classic series in every sense of the word, where you definitely need all 5 books to complete the story. Unlike the Bear Kings, where after West of the Moon, everything will be a little bit more standalone, more like Redwall. We're gonna fill in this little niche while we're doing this. Yeah, you gotta raise that's my problem with a lot of cozy fantasy. These it's a brand new genre. It's getting a following. It's very cool because I do love the idea of it, because I love cozy mystery, and I think cozy fantasy definitely is a genre I could really embrace. With quirky characters and neat settings and mysteries and things like that, but in a fantasy setting. And there are people writing it, but I find that a lot of times the stakes don't feel real to me in a lot of those books. Because I pick up, if I see a cozy fantasy that's new or recommended, I'll pick it up. But sometimes it's just not. And people like low stakes, though, sometimes. Because it's more relaxing, right? But I think you can do low stakes and still have an adventure, right? And still have a little bit of danger. I guess it depends. It's everybody's different tastes, right? Okay, we're going to pop this in here. So I'm going to make this side blend out. Yeah, Legends and Lattes that book defined the genre. Legends and Latte's success is what has made cozy fantasy an actual genre that people are actually writing in. And I also really liked Legends and Lattes. Reading that, I was like, okay, this is it. This could be a fun thing to write. And ever since I've read it, I wanted to write in that genre. So I'm like sitting here going, So Queenmaker is my cozy. But yeah, I feel like a lot of, and maybe it's just that, you know, like a lot of indie stuff like isn't quite written like terribly well. There are some really good indie writers out there, but there are also a lot who write like good fun stories, but that they could definitely work on their craft a little more, right? And I read them even if they're like kind of poorly written if the story is good. But I do feel like one of the ones that I recently read was a little bit too feel goody and not enough like actual tension. Like, because you still need something to move the story along. Even if it's low stakes tension. And if you don't have real good characterization and growth still, then you're lacking. You don't get that satisfying closure. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So I'm making a little line of really, really narrow ones. Legends and Lattes is the story of an orc adventurer who hangs up her sword and opens a coffee shop. I kid you not. and it's fun. It's definitely cozy and it's definitely low stakes, but there is risk and the characters are good. And so it's very good. And the guy who wrote it is also, he writes for video games and stuff. So this was his first novel. But he's not a new writer per se. He has written professionally, just for a different genre of stuff. There we go. A little bit more. But yes. So yeah, I like the idea of a safe read, but I also like the idea of a little bit of like mystery and a little bit of danger and a little bit of adventure in that. All right, so we got our things. All our cobbles are all looking pretty good, actually, I think. Yeah? So I'm going to texture the ones that we've got, as my green is probably setting up, and the longer you wait, the less the texture will take without you doing some serious pressing, and I don't want to seriously press to deform all my little cobbles. And we got some little texture on them. I like sculpting cobblestones. They're fun. They're fun. It's so repetitive, but it's like knitting. You're knitting with putty, making little knots. And I think I'll just leave that gap there, right here. Because there would definitely be cobbles that were displaced. So I'll run some sand up over here. I may need a little bit more. And you need more green over here. So yeah, but we can see how we're going. Let's back out of it. So now we can see that there's like pockets and unevenness with the cobbles, and we can bring up our sand and bring it out over the edges to rough that edge up. Yes. Well, he's out. I always envisioned him out at a hunting lodge for some noble running the place. So this is like the front walk of the hunting lodge, which they constantly have to hack away the plants from to keep everything from being overgrown. Yeah, you totally need to get it, Age of Marvel. It's a good book. It's a good one. I enjoyed it. We read it for my book club, my writers group book club. I hadn't heard of it before that. Every once in a while I go and get back into my writers club book club because I do discover books that way. All right, so now let's get this in here. Yeah, my green is definitely setting up at this point. But yeah, and then I have my urban fantasy world, or my urban fantasy novel that I'm trying to figure out what it needs to become. Whether it's going to be a duology. But yeah, so maybe I should try the Sanderson method. Although Brandon never stops writing, right? He doesn't take breaks other than to write something that's just more lightweight than, his big epic fantasy these days. Or other stuff like Mistborn. Things in established series. Established series always feel heavier to work on because you have to keep so much in mind because you're working in continuity. So I feel like that's why it feels so nice to work on something just fresh and light and easy and fun. Yeah, it's what he does, Gibson. Like, I'd love to see his Clifton Strengths report. I bet it would just be interesting to see. Because he's definitely, that's what he does. Like, he is a writer, and he just writes, and, he still has other things he likes, obviously, and likes to do, but in general, just like as he said during his pandemic when he revealed his 4 secret novels, he's like, Brandon plus time equals more books. Brandon plus free time equals more books. I thought that was hilarious, and, but it's just, that's what he does. And I guess, and I even if I wanted to get to that mindset, I don't think I could get there while I'm still having to, if I was a full-time writer, and that was what I did every day, I could see myself getting to that point where writing was my default because it would be just what I did every day. And I tend to like days that are the same. I tend to like, a predictable schedule, and that lets me set myself up for success and get motivated. But while I have the Patreon and all this other stuff, it's going to be a long time before you guys have to worry about me not having a Patreon. I'll tell you that. So it's going to be a long time before I would be able to actually go and be a full-time writer. If it ever happens. May never happen. Would I like to be? Yeah, I think eventually I would. Eventually the Patreon is just going to be have so much in it that I could see just making it the Anne archive. And put out a new thing every once in a while I played with my own stuff. But that's years and years and years and years away. Yeah, he's very social. Seems to be a very social person. Big chimpo. Brandon Sanderson. We're just putting in that last little link there. I may put a little blob there. But yeah, and it's just different writers, work differently, and that productivity thing is another thing that's very individual. Some writers honestly need to stop and think about a book for months to write, to really do their best work, and others really can do a book, very quickly, and others are always writing, and others need to take breaks and need fallow time, right? So, and I feel like I have personality traits from both, so I'm I'm curious to see how my production rate finally settles out. Yeah, but Brandon's disciplined. He is definitely, it's admirable what he does. That's a writer thing, GB. That's a writer thing. Well, you make a note of it, and then you go back to writing the current book. Although your guy sounds like He writes pretty fast, Chibi. When he gets big enough, I just curate it into a book. Oh, my Patreon? Yeah. It would be an online book. Maybe I would make I mean, I could put all the PDFs into like one thing and do that. There we go. Just put one little bridging stone in there. There we go. So now we've got a nice irregular surface, which is what we want to see. Now I just need more sand built up in between to make it look like it's drifted over the top. Well, that's good if he writes very fast. I mean, that's that can be an asset in today's publishing world. Indie publishing, anyway. Alrighty. Let's see here. Anything else? I feel like this edge needs to get a little bit more defined. Yeah. Yeah. Now I want to know what his Clifton strengths are. There we go. So our putty is getting unsticky. So it's really setting up. It's still pliable and I can still shape it into cobbles. But I have to press it down a lot more to get it to adhere. I think I want to go around here. Yeah, whereas I have to be, for me to sit down and write, I have to be disciplined. Like when I'm excited about a project, I am excited to sit down and write it. But I have a lot of creative resistance, probably because I juggle so many things. And so for me to really be productive, I have to totally clear the deck. But I still have a lot of other things I have to work on. I don't know. We'll see. Everybody is so different. That's why it's so cool in the world. Yeah, a very strategic thinking and execution, you think. Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering if he had like achiever, focus, ideation, maybe input. But definitely sounds ideation. If he's waking you up in the middle of the night to tell you about a cool idea, probably high ideation. I have ideation as a number 9 in my 34, so I also get a ton of ideas. Oh, Crowley. He doesn't, people. Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised at how much people stuff I had, because I would have thought that I was not terribly people oriented because, introvert, right? But connectedness and what's the other one? Connectedness and significance, I think. What do I have? No, connectedness and individualization. Those are my social relationship ones. So essentially understanding that everybody is different and being able to tailor things to them, which explains why I can be good at this stream. And connectedness is seeing connections between people and things. So trying to relate like my own experiences to you guys and find out if you also have had similar experiences. Things like that. Drawing connections. Drawing connections and making them. The other thing about high connectedness people is that they typically really are invested in making sure that you have the best experience. Like for teaching, if you also have teaching strengths like I do, it actually matters to you. Like it matters to me that you guys succeed in your hobby. Like, and that's why I do this. Like that's why I put so much time into my Patreon and why I stream. So a little bit of stampiness. So that's a connectedness thing, is actually that people, if you're a teacher, people getting value from what you teach is very important to you. There we go. Yeah, it might be a weakness, but it sounds like he has a lot of productivity strengths. So that's, if he has a lot of execution and strategic strengths, that's pretty good. He might be more challenged relating with fans or doing like individual marketing, that kind of stuff. There we go. There. So now we got kind of an edge there, and we're making it irregular around here. We can put more sand in here once the green is set, and we'll be able to. And that took quite a while. That took pretty much the stream. But that's all right. So we didn't get to Jolie, but that's all right. She'll hang out. She's okay, she says. She understands that Burgermeister was the first, and that she's just here to step in once he's done. Right. I find that a lot of like partners are like that. Partners or married people or in relationships. If one really can't people, they actually are drawn to somebody who can, for exactly that reason. Like innately. Stretch. So any questions? Anything? We're going to set the green up and then we'll put more sand on there. And then probably what I'll do next time is for this pair is I will put the sand on and maybe do some texturing just to blend it all in and make it look natural. And then we'll switch to Jolie for the rest of the stream next time we get these guys together. That is my plan, because we'll need to, once we get all the sand attached, we'll also need to let it set, right? So won't be able to paint it right away. Well, Richard, there's no pressure. You don't have to try anything you learn here. Hopefully the things that you do absorb are just things that you can use to enhance the things you already do. Yeah, probably Chibi. Although David's pretty sociable. Like, he has to be reminded to be sociable, but when he's with people, he's actually sociable. Unless John cancels in 5 or so minutes from now, Reaperland should be out today. Oh no, Quindy. Burned too many times. Burned too many times by John. Well, y'all. It's Friday. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. I hope you're enjoying this. Oh, what's coming up? Oh, yay! On Monday, we'll be Kathying. We started on her NMM, and it's going to be cool, I think. It's going to turn out really cool. I wanted to say, it will be streaming. I believe I will be streaming tomorrow. And we're going to be working on my mini for Andy Pieper. So we'll work on this lady. I need to, there's a whole bunch of stuff I need to do on her. I need to highlight the black. I need the lace to come up better, so I need to shade it. So working on like an actual sculpted lace surface. We'll talk about that. The floor is going to be wood parquet. So I need to keep working on it. So yeah, I want to finish this for Andy by the time of ReaperCon. So I'm going to start streaming it on Saturdays so that I can finish it. But yeah, so I will be on tomorrow 3:30 p.m. Central, aroundish there. And I'll see those of you who show up. Quindy, thank you for herding the cats. Oh, man, my neck is really sore lately. I think I need to do some exercises and stretches, figure out it needs a break. It needs a break. Yeah, thanks, everybody. Indeedy. Yeah, enjoy your weekend, everybody, and I'll see some of you tomorrow, and otherwise, we'll see you all on Monday. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.